I think this video is emotional Novocain for single ladies using God as a crutch for why you are single. You need to be at the gym instead of worrying about being in a relationship. You're 24. That's too young to be discussing this topic, in my opinion. If she lowers her standards and loses weight, she'll find a guy. The internet's a crazy place. Let's talk about it. Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you are all doing well. So today's video is really just me using people's comments as an opportunity to have a broader conversation. Now listen, comments like this definitely used to get to me, and it is probably why I have put off doing this video for so long, because I didn't want to come on here and come at people. That's just not me. At the end of the day, I know the nature of the internet. People find you on, their explore page or on the browse feature or, in their recommended, and they watch a part of your video and they come to conclusions about who you are, what you're saying, and what you think. That's just the nature of the internet. But I actually wanted to make this video for the women who watch my channel. I have been so blessed to actually have an overwhelmingly positive community here on the internet. I have met people who I have the absolute privilege to call my internet sisters, and they allow me to do life with them. This video is for you, because as much as I have done the personal work and as much as I have grown to a point where these kind of comments don't get to me anymore, I want to make this video for the women who may see these comments or read them online or even hear them in their real lives, and who are struggling to navigate through their lives with as much joy and as much confidence, because different people are trying to push on them this kind of truth which dictates to them how they should navigate through the world. So let's get into reading these comments. Most of these comments are from under my video where I talked about being single for 6 years, okay? This is good advice for people who want to remain single. Being married to the right person is way better than being single, which I enjoyed being single very much. But the truth is, being a wife and a mother blows it out of the water. It's amazing. It really is. I don't have to share my bed with my husband or give food to my son. I get to. I wish all the women who want to share this immense joy of marriage the very best it has to offer. Trust me, the whole I get to be selfish single thing gets old. So firstly, I really do appreciate this comment, and I think it gives good insight into the beauty of different seasons of life. But I have to kind of add a bit of nuance and clarity here, which is every season is a season. It comes to an end, it has a beginning, and it should be fully embraced and enjoyed in its good time. I get it. Your single season may have paled in comparison to your married season. Cool. But for women who are not married yet, they have to make the absolute best and the absolute most joyful experience from the season that they are currently in. And I get it, loving your husband and sharing your bed with a husband and, getting to be a mother to your child is an absolute privilege. I'm not negating that. And I think even in the video, I stated that as seasons change, you embrace the good that comes with every season. I agree, the whole, season of singleness, the whole being selfish thing gets old. However, right now for most of us, it's new and it's absolutely great. And I don't think you should subtract from that just because you've entered into a new season of your life. Every season has its benefits. Every season has its fruit. And I think it's absolutely amazing for women to embrace the time that they get to be alone. Because like you mentioned, sis, when you get into a new season, not only do you get to serve other people, you also have to serve other people because you've made a commitment to be that person in their life. And I think it's an absolutely beautiful commitment, and I can't wait to embrace it once I get into that season. However, once I'm in that season, I can't so easily get out. Once I become a mother, I'm gonna be a mother forever. Once I become a wife, hopefully I'm gonna be a wife forever, which means I have committed myself to these people for the rest of my life. I have made them a priority in my life for the rest of my life. Right now, I am thriving in the fact that I get to be the only one I have to worry about for a long time. And I think it's important for for women to really embrace that season, so that when they do enter into the season of marriage, the season of motherhood, where they have to serve and they have to be committed to their community and their family, they don't have this built up resentment or feeling of loss, or, you know, a feeling of, I didn't get to fully maximize when I was alone, and now I have other responsibilities. And let's be real, responsibilities, yes, you get to do them, but they also come with immense discipline, and that means that you have to still do them even when you don't feel like doing them. So let's not paint this false image that, you know, I get to be a wife, I get to be a mother, and that's just full of so much joy all the time. And it's probably one of the most fulfilling things that the women who desire it are going to have in their lives. However, I think it's important to still take the beauty of the season that you are in and fully, you know, suck all of the juice out of it before you enter the next, so that you don't have regrets, and so that you don't have what ifs. What if I had done this? What if I had done that? Because let's not also lie and say that being married and having children doesn't change your life and doesn't change the things that are necessarily open to you. In terms of being a single woman, I can decide right now, and I've done this so many times this year, to just pack my bags and go on holiday. I don't need to worry about whether there's breast milk in the freezer. I have friends who are in that season of their life, and it's absolutely beautiful. But I had them also tell me that, girl, do everything that you're doing right now, because once you have kids, you're going to be worrying about, is there breast milk at home? I can't be gone for too long. My husband needs XYZ. I need to be at home to be present with my family. I can't necessarily work as hard as I used to because I'm a mum now, you know, and this is actually where I want to spend my time. It's not necessarily about which season is better. And I don't think the season of singleness is better than the season of marriage. I just think it is a season, and the season of marriage is a season, okay? You've got to take the beauty of each season as you are in it. And I hugely discourage, and I always say this on my channel, and this is the reason behind why I make the majority of these videos. I don't want single women in their season coveting what married women have and completely overlooking the beauty and the freedom and the luxuries they have in this season. I also don't want us to get married, or married women to be looking at single women coveting their freedom, coveting whatever it is that they have, overlooking the beauty, the joy, and the freedom that they have in their current season. So it's not about which season is better, and it's not about the whole I'm selfish single thing becoming old. Obviously, we don't want to be in any one season of our life past its time, okay? Once that season has ended, it's ended, and we press on to the new season. But whilst we're in it, let's not be wondering whether the grass is greener on the other side. So I appreciate the comment, and I think it's a privilege to be able to be married and have children if that is what you so desire. However, if you are not yet there, appreciate the privileges and the joy that come with your present. So I don't think this is necessarily advice for people who want to stay single. I think it's advice for people who are single, where they may not have met the right person yet, and they're going to have to embrace their season. They're going to have to embrace the fact that the right person may not come along tomorrow. And if I haven't found them, I'm probably going to wake up tomorrow single, okay? I can either choose to live this single period completely unhappy, wondering when I'm going to get married, as most women do, down in the dumps at the fact that I'm single and thinking I'm lesser than, or thinking that somehow my womanhood or my femininity has not been validated because I am not in a relationship. Or I can embrace it and live my life out to be beautiful in this season, in this period. And to address the rest of it, you know, that being married to the right person is way better than being single. I actually agree to some extent. I haven't experienced what it means to be married yet. However, I do think that being in a relationship is a beautiful thing. And I think people watch videos like this and they think,
oh, you're saying you think that women shouldn't get married, and this is, you know, that toxic feminism that tells women, you know, you don't need a man, and
that is not what I said. Listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. That is not what I said. However, I do think that if we don't take enough time to really edify and encourage women and empower women when they are single to see themselves as a whole human being who should actually explore their interests, their desires, their talents, their gifts, their purpose, their destiny, outside of this obsession and idolization of being in a marriage, if we don't do that, you have women who will run into being in a marriage or a long-term relationship or situationships with the wrong person. And I can guarantee you, being in a marriage or being in a relationship with the wrong person is way worse than being single. And that's why I kind of think we have to have these conversations about the ways we frame singleness, because I think it's beautiful to be in a marriage with the right person. But if you are broken, if you are desperate, if you are pursuing marriage from a place of fear, the likelihood is you're going to get into a marriage with the wrong person. And I do think there is a way to marry the wrong person. Not because the person is bad, not because the person is average, none of that, but actually because this person doesn't make you happy. There is no synergy here for the future. There is no joy here in this relationship. You are in this relationship out of fear. You are in, and I'm not here for that. I'm personally not here for that. Yeah. Relationships are worth it. We are not designed for long-term singleness. We all need a partner, and it takes effort to find one. Kudos for healing from your past relationship, but go find your man. It is a time-sensitive mission. So first of all, I do believe that relationships are worth it. Relationships of any kind are definitely worth it. Once you have found somebody who actually sparks joy in your life and brings, you know, immense growth and companionship and fulfillment to a degree to your life, pursuing the success of that relationship is worth the effort that it takes. But whilst you say we are not all designed for long-term singleness, I do think there is a space to have a conversation about women who may never get married. And whilst we may not have been designed for loneliness and isolation, I do think some people can really live through life single and happy about that fact. Now, don't get me wrong, very few people are actually graced for that. And I do think you need to be graced for that. I think you need to have a certain outlook on life, a certain plan for your life, which makes you completely satisfied with that. But I do believe there are women out there who can be satisfied living single. I actually have known some women who in their old age have never been married. I remember asking questions like, dang, so you don't have sex, because they were Christian, you don't have sex, you don't have kids, why did you never get married, you know? And they kind of just say, you know, the right person didn't come along, and yet they are still living in purpose, they are still happy. And yes, there may be insecurities, there may be, you know, moments of sadness, but even married women have insecurities and moments of sadness. We are all battling with it in different ways. And so they weren't actually unhappy. They were just living, but they had immersed themselves in different forms of community to ensure that they were not lonely. And something that the majority of us are dealing with in our generation, and something with the older population are even dealing with, is loneliness. And even if you had a partner and then your partner passed away, or, you know, you had, you know, a house full of children and then your children got older and they went off to have their own marriages and live their own lives and stuff like that, you're going to have to confront these feelings of loneliness. And that feeling is very, very real. And it's that feeling, not singleness, but loneliness, that actually kills people. And I would agree that we were not designed for. But a lot of people think if you were single, you were automatically lonely. That is not necessarily the case. You can have friends, siblings, family, colleagues, people in your life, spiritual family, who you invest in and who you serve and who you spend your time with, okay? Life doesn't have to be lonely because you don't have a romantic partner. Now, I do think in intimate moments, you may be thinking, like, I'm lonely, I don't have somebody to share my bed with, or I don't have somebody to go on vacations with and stuff like that. You can overcome those feelings if you immerse yourself in other forms of community. So I think we need to be careful with the wording in terms of we were not made for long-term singleness. I actually don't think we were made for loneliness. I don't think we were made to be alone. I don't think we were made for isolation. However, some people can be single and can be completely fine with it. Marriage is not something that is promised to absolutely everybody. Marriage is not a reward for femininity. Marriage is not a reward for personal development. Marriage is not a reward for womanhood. Marriage is not a reward. It's a responsibility. It's a journey. It's a new phase. It's a new challenge. And it is beautiful, but you can also experience challenges and beautiful seasons outside of marriage. So this whole idea that we all need a partner, yes, we may need, you know, friends, companions, and people in our lives. However, I think we all need a partner who will bring out the best in us. We all need a partner who we can work with and have understanding with and build a life with. And if you don't find that, you might not need to be in a romantic relationship, but I would encourage anybody, just because you're single doesn't mean you don't need to immerse yourself in community. It doesn't mean you don't need to immerse yourself in the presence of other people and have people around you who can speak life into you and provide you with that companionship and all of that. I think we all need a good partner if we do end up in a relationship. That's the caveat I would put there. And it does take effort to find a good partner. I completely agree. But the idea that, it's a time-sensitive mission to find your husband, I get it. I get why we think like that. However, I do think whilst there is, a season where it's most optimal to actually get married and get into a relationship, and I'm very mindful of that because there is the biological realities and the scientific realities of the most optimal time for fertilization, the most optimal time to be, bearing children. I'm actually very aware of that. The majority of women are actually very aware of that. However, I am very much against letting that ticking clock, not just the internal one, but also society's one, force you into finding the wrong thing. Like I said, if you want a relationship, then you need a good partner. And I don't want anyone to rush into situations because they feel like my time is running out and there's this ticking time bomb. And if I don't find a husband by 30, if I don't find a husband by 35, my life is just going to implode. Nah, it's not. It's really, really not. But yeah, I actually agree with you to some degree. Because it requires effort to find a good partner, put in the effort if you desire to have a relationship. And that's just advice for all of my single ladies, my single friends, my single sisters. I don't agree with the idea that this is time sensitive to the point where it creates fear in people's hearts and they feel as though, I need to rush, and then they don't end up finding a good partner. I also think that these things are not as complicated as we make them. I know that that word mission was used. I don't think it's necessarily a mission or this really, intense thing that requires us to, go searching high and low and, solve all these mysteries and riddles and stuff. I think as a generation, we are hugely overcomplicating romantic relationships. And I think as more information is even out there as to how we can heal and how we can, really find good relationships and build authentic, lifelong relationships, friendships, repair family ties and all of that, we are still regressing in other areas because we are overcomplicating the simplicity of love. We are overcomplicating the simplicity of simply being in agreement with somebody. We are overcomplicating what it means to have a preference. We are really overcomplicating dating. And I think it's because we exist in these echo chambers on the internet, which are trying to dictate to us what it is we should and should not expect from people. And I don't think life actually works that way. I think my preference, and this is why I don't come on the internet as well and let people know, this is my preferences and this is what I want in a guy, because it doesn't actually matter. It actually is inconsequential to the majority of things that are not my life and my relationship. And I think we come on the internet and we hear people tell, relationship advice, which is so specific. This is how much people should spend on you. This is the gifts that you should receive. This is what you should expect. This is how you should behave. And it's like, no, I'm gonna actually decide what I'll do for my life. And I'm not gonna navigate this as if, we're all on this common high-speed heist or trying to find a treasure box, which is the rare good man. I'm actually going to let me working on myself, dating with wisdom, help me find and navigate my way through the dating game, but also help my husband to find me and help me to find a man who I actually want to build a life with. I don't think it's as complicated as we're making it. Now, is it easy? Absolutely not. However, I don't think it's this complicated. And whilst finding the right person for you might be hard because it may be 1 in a million, there's 7 billion people on the planet, girl. Get out there. You are a very beautiful woman who has done a lot of inner work on yourself. However, you still need to do some outward work. Once this is complete, trust me, you'll be flooded with a lot of relationship proposals. I know this may sound shallow, but it's the painful truth. Take care. So I receive this kind of comment quite often, and it's not even just online. This is probably the sort of comment that I receive most in my real life, which is, you've got everything together. You're so smart, you're so beautiful, you're all these compliments. You've done so much inner work, you're so wise, you feel, you love Jesus. But there's one thing, which is the way that you look. And I actually do see why people consider it to be the truth, because that's how most people navigate through the world. The world, the dating game, all of that is quite superficial. It all is based on the exterior. And I do think there is some truth to the fact that whilst, you know, your looks may not keep you in the door, it's definitely what gets you in the door. It's what helps people to show interest in you. People who are conventionally more beautiful are navigating the world with a different level of ease, whether that, and different aspects of the world, right? Whether it be dating or career or opportunities that come their way. Let's not deny it. There's research about it. There's articles about it. You can go and Google it, all right? But I think it's important to remember that that's often because there is a conventional beauty standard which is being taught to us, right? And I think the majority of us have internalized that, and we put internal pressure on ourselves and we nitpick at ourselves about, you know, I need to look like this, I need to be like that and stuff like that. And it's an unfortunate reality of our society, not because it is, you know, an objective truth, but because it is a social norm, because it is a socially set standard, and a majority of certain cultures and an internet culture and Americanized global culture is operating based on that standard. Most of us have internalized that thought, which means that even if people on an individual level are attracted to people who do not live up to the conventional beauty standard, they may still kind of cower away from approaching the people that they desire or the person that they're attracted to, because they know society doesn't necessarily view them as conventionally attractive and may not approve of their relationship on a social level. And there is that kind of pressure. But I do think it's important to have a conversation about how people try to impose their preference on other people and try to make it seem as though because somebody doesn't look like their preference or doesn't even look like the average beauty standard, they don't deserve to date, because that's actually not true. Or even worse, try to force onto women, this is what you should look like, this is what you should do, this is what you should act like. You know, all the feminine, how to be feminine videos, and y'all know already, I kind of have a problem with that because of the undertones that exist within those conversations. However, in these videos, it teaches women this is how you should be. But what if they don't want to be like that? Maybe there's no intrinsic desire, even though they are women, even though they are feminine, to live like that, to look like that, to behave like that, you know. Don't have long nails, but what if I like long nails? What if it's a part of the culture that I grew up in? What if it's a way that I express beauty? People will tell you, well, then the majority of men don't like you. And this is why the internet can be so frustrating, because it's like, no, take your attention to offline, right? Look at the different kinds of women who are married, who are in relationships. Not all of them look like what you think the optimum feminine babe should look like. Get off and get out of these echo chambers which keep trying to dictate to you that this is who you should be, and there is only one way to be beautiful. There is only one way to be feminine. There is only one way to be pretty. Unsubscribe, like not from me, subscribe to my channel, but unsubscribe from those rhetorics, unsubscribe from those narratives, unsubscribe from that commentary that is trying to dictate to you who it is you should be and what it is you should look like. Because I do think it's important for women to be allowed to embrace their individualism, to embrace their quirks, and to say, you know, this is what I actually desire to look like. This is how I desire to dress. This is how I desire to behave. And kind of removing that from the optics of, well, will men like it? Well, what men are you talking about? Because I also think there's a need to have conversations about coaching women to appeal to the mass majority of men, when actually we don't know what the mass majority of men actually want. And this is why it's important to surround yourself with men and women in your real life who can actually talk to you about the society and the culture that you are presently living in and you are presently navigating, because everyone has different desires, everyone has different preferences, and everyone has a right to have their preferences. But don't go around making it seem as though there is only one desirable person, there is only one desirable body type, there is only one desirable aesthetic, there is only one desirable kind of behavior and conduct. And this is really symptomatic of just the internet that we live in, where people exist in echo chambers and think that certain things and certain opinions and certain mindsets are more representative of the masses than they actually really are. There are so many different kinds of men out there, so many different kinds of people out there who want different things based on their individual desires. And this is why I really want to encourage women, get in touch with your individualism and stop trying to, play this strategic game of what will the majority of men like. Have you actually spoken to those men? Have you actually spoken to the categories of men or the sorts of men who are your preference, who you would actually want to get to know? Are you just listening to people on the internet who are talking out of the sides of their mouths for views, or commenting behind no pictures, no real names, trying to dictate to you what the truth is, and you've internalized this as this is the truth, this is what the majority of people feel, when actually it's just a handful of people saying the same thing over and over again, trying to make you feel as though, yes, this is the right thing. If you actually talk to your brothers, if you actually talk to your fathers, they may concur, okay? And then you'll know, okay, this may be a proven hypothesis amongst the people around me. However, you may also find the people around me don't think like this. They actually like women who are like this. They like women who do X, Y, Z. Stop getting so chimed into these internet echo chambers that you completely forsake listening to real opinions that happen in real life. And also, let's stop getting to this place where we think that because somebody doesn't fit our preferences that they don't deserve to date, or just because they don't fit your preference doesn't mean that they shouldn't be dating. It just means that they shouldn't be dating you. And we kind of get to this point where we feel as though, because we've internalized all these images of what's beautiful, what's not, that the people who don't fit into that don't deserve love, that they don't deserve attention, that they also don't deserve joy, right, in their lives, and the ability to just really be content in their individualism, not in their loneliness, but in their individualism, being the people who they actually want to be, being the people who, you know, show off their bright personality, or are interested in their hobbies or their interests, and, you know, are just living life for themselves. We believe that they don't deserve that because they don't live up to what we believe to be valuable. And that's why we need to throw this whole scale of high value, average and stuff out of the window, because it's not objective. It is not helpful, I don't think. And it kind of just breeds a disrespect, because you then measure people according to a scale which you have either created or internalized, because it's been dictated to you from these echo chambers. And you start to disrespect people, you start to view people as less human or less than deserving of respect, joy, relationship, companionship, love, because you deem them to not be up to your standard. Who said that they're trying to date you? Who said that women are trying to date the masses? Who said that women are trying to date these high value men? Do you get what I mean? Just because people have constantly said, oh, these women are trying to date high value men, they're trying to date high value men. Not every woman thinks the same. Not every woman on the internet thinks the same. Not everybody in real life thinks the same. Not everybody has the same desires and priorities and values and preferences. Stop treating everybody as these universal monolithic things just because you're listening to continual commentary on the internet. Diversify, log off. This comment was probably the one that kind of ruffled me up the most, and it's also the longest, so let's get into it. Married man of 12 years. This video popped up for me. I debated leaving a comment, as I know this won't be a popular opinion. I think this video is emotional Novocain for single ladies using God as a crutch for why you are single. At some point, there has to be practical/actionable tips on how to cooperate with a man. Let's just pause right there. But that's not what this video was about. This video wasn't necessarily about how to get a man, how to cooperate with a man, how to build a life with a man. That wasn't what this video was about. God isn't going to send him. You spoke about being intentional. I agree with this. Thank you. But there was nothing intentional in this video about getting a quality man, because that's not what this video was about. I'm talking about a man that has character, morals, and is responsible, who may not necessarily be 6 foot, 6 figures, and 6 packs. And I wanted to pause there real quick, because I think when people hear women don't want to settle, they think they are talking about these aesthetic things, how tall he is, how much money he makes, and what his physical appearance is. And I do think women should be allowed to be entitled to wanting men who they are attracted to. Stop trying to take that away from women, because men get that privilege all the time. However, that's not all women are talking about when they're talking about not settling or setting standards. But I think because a lot of men are triggered by that, a lot of men, you know, are out here calling women gold diggers, or thinking that women of this generation haven't got their head screwed on. As soon as a woman starts talking about navigating the dating game, they paint them all with the same brush of like, all of you are just XYZ, all of you just want XYZ, and it's so unwise, and it's so superficial, and it's so da-da-da-da-da-da. And they try to humble women when it's like, actually, you can't paint us all with a universal brush. You don't know what I want. You don't know what I'm talking about. You don't know what I desire. I do desire a man with morals. The majority of us want a man of good character. The majority of us have our preferences for the way that they look. But this is what I was talking about in the last video that I did about setting standards. There is a difference between settling on your standards and compromising on the fine details, right? But everyone needs to decide for themselves what compromise looks like, because everyone's non-negotiables are different. And I think women are entitled to say, this is a non-negotiable for me, and they will have to deal with the repercussions of that. And I think most women are actually happy to deal with the fact that, okay, if you have, you know, tight standards or tight preferences, which, you know, you don't want to negotiate on, it may take a little bit longer, or it may require a little bit more strategy for you to find the guy that you actually want. I actually think the majority of women have accepted that, but people want to shake and fear women so much, or scare women so much, into being scared of being single, that when they are holding out to find the ideal person, they're like, you ain't never gonna find him, drop your standards or you're gonna be single forever. Not necessarily. It may take me longer to find him, but I might actually find him, right? And then they call on these really random examples of women who are in their 40s and who are single and who are unhappy. But there are women who also got married at 35, 36, 38 who were perfectly fine. Why don't you call on those examples of people who got married a bit later because they waited for Mr. Right, or they maybe got divorced to Mr. Wrong or Mr. Right now, and then ended up getting divorced and then found Mr. Right, okay? There are examples and case studies of that, but people don't call on that because it doesn't fit their agenda. And I think and this is why I need us to have balanced, nuanced conversations, because there are examples for all of our arguments of, you know, if you stay single too long, you're going to be tired and bored and upset and unhappy. There are examples of that. If you stay single for the rest of your life, you can be happy. There are examples of that. If you get married too early, you're going to be unhappy. There are examples of that. If you get married young, you're going to have a thriving marriage. There are examples of that. There are so many examples that we could all call on, not just the ones that fit our agenda, right? And I also have to be mindful of when I do this sort of thing, to not give an unrealistic idea and an unrealistic image of what relationships are or what life could actually be. There is a lot of context. There is a lot of subjectivity here, because everyone is an individual and every individual situation turns out very, very different. I'm getting manifest vibes from this video. I don't know where, I don't know how. It sounds like an echo chamber, to be honest. I'm not trying to hurt feelings here, but I just wanted to leave my thoughts from a male perspective. Fair enough, but your perspective isn't the only male perspective either. And I hear the whole, oh, I'm getting manifest vibes from this video. I don't know where you got that from. There is intentionality that goes into dating. And I literally said that in the video. I had a whole segment about being intentional, not just about creating your happiness, but also if you want to date, girl, go out there, get up, go and date. You can't just be sitting inside. But people just want to ignore that part, like I said, to kind of fit their agenda. And I think it's important for us to really hear what people are actually saying. And if you can't listen to a full video and you can't listen to the full context of a conversation, which is why I make long form content, because I feel like it's harder to kind of misunderstand me. However, people will still misunderstand, because that's the nature of the internet. But if you can't stick out the conversation, or you can't, listen for the full content, don't comment. Don't, because you can't give a good comment, a well-rounded comment, an insightful comment if you actually don't have all of the information. You need to be at the gym instead of worrying about being in a relationship. People will see that I'm a plus size babe and feel like they can come at me left. And I see a lot of plus size women, dark skinned women, black women receive the same thing, where people try to come on your channel and they try to, talk to you in real life, or most people don't even have the balls to do it in real life, if we're going to be honest, but they try to kind of humble you, and they see you and they feel like they can draw so many conclusions on you of who you are, and try to dictate to you what you should be doing with your life. You don't actually need to lose weight in order, hello everybody, lose weight if you big. You actually, sorry, that TikTok has me in a chokehold. You actually don't need to wait until you're a certain size before you date. Please just date people who are attracted to you, okay? And make sure that they're not in these insidious, incelly corners of the internet talking about fat women or fetishizing you or whatever it is. But girl, go and find somebody who will love you for who you are. And the majority of people may have something to say, the internet may have something to say, but thank God you are not dating the internet. And this brings us to a wider discussion, and this is why on my channel I actually talk about body consciousness and diet culture and actually going on a health journey versus just a weight loss journey, because most people will be like, get into the gym to achieve these aesthetic goals, get into the gym so that people will deem you to be more valuable, get into the gym so that, you know, you can get a man, girl. And you have so many women trying to break their backs, trying to just lose weight so that they can get a good man, but they may end up choosing to go down, you know, the quick fix route, which can often be very, very unhealthy. And I recently did an IG live where I was actually wearing the same jumpsuit. I promise you I have other clothes. And I was responding to a comment which another girl left under last week's video. And I actually wanted to get more in depth into that comment because I wanted to address things like internalized misogyny and, you know, the feelings that I have towards this whole like your average at best culture that Kevin Samuels put into the earth. So go and watch that. Go and follow me on Instagram as well. So definitely go and give it a watch. I was talking about it more in depth there, but I do think it's important to have conversations about how, unfortunately, these echo chambers and the horrible attitude towards people that they have created have unfortunately put women in this kind of position where they may have to do, or they may feel as though they must resort to really dangerous, really unhealthy practices in order to find fulfillment, because we have told them that their relationship status is the ultimate happiness and it's therefore worth the sacrifice of their health, actual health, like their holistic health, their physical health, right? Their relationship with food. We've told them that all of this is worth the sacrifice, right? The potential eating disorders, the potential obsession over nitpicking over your body, the body consciousness, all of it is worth just finding that trophy, which is, I got a man, and being able to say that. I don't think it's worth it. You could call me whatever you want. I just don't think it's worth it. I think we need to also prioritize men and women having healthy relationships with their body, having healthy bodies, and not just, you know, healthy by what society deems healthy, but actually whatever health looks like on them. Because so many people are actually fighting greater health issues far past just the weight that they are on the scale. If I came on here and, you know, I had miraculously, or quickly rather I should say, if I had quickly lost 30 kg or 30 pounds, right? People will probably be in the comments applauding me like, oh my God, how did you do it? You look amazing. Oh my God, so beautiful. That's obviously because we associate slimness with beauty, but also they probably wouldn't take time to really question whether I had done it in a healthy way, and if I had done it in a sustainable way, and if I had done it in a way that was actually more detrimental to my health, my mental and my physical health, than going probably the long way round. Whilst we are out here telling people lose weight, it's important to actually help people lose weight the right way, because there is a right way and the safe way. Because, you know, if I drop and slash my calories drastically, right, I could give myself some real metabolic issues. I can give myself some real reproductive issues. I may not have even tackled other greater health risks like diabetes, because you could still be slim and be diabetic, or, you know, heart disease or hypertension, or any of these things. I may not have actually dealt with any of these health issues. I may have even further destroyed my relationship with food by becoming extremely fearful of food and denying myself food and being in constant starvation mode. All of these things, which many scientific papers have already proven are very dangerous to the human body and the human psyche, but because I've lost weight and because that weight loss is seen as desirable and it's seen as making you more beautiful and more worthy of relationships, people will applaud you even if you are still on the brink of death or insanity, just because you look like somebody who people want to date. And people will give you more respect, and people will date you, and people will do all these things, but you're upset and you're broken and you now have more long-term issues. And this is no kick to anybody who has lost weight, or lost weight in a drastic way, or gone and done surgery. Like, this is no kick to it at all. I just think there is a wider conversation that women need to be allowed to have in terms of our relationship with health and our relationship with food and our relationship with exercise and our relationship and understanding of our own individual bodies and how attuned we are to these things outside of our desirability, because really and truly that is actually quite inconsequential to the whole conversation we need to have about our relationship with health. And again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? Allowing women to exist outside of the dating conversation, allowing women to thrive and exist outside of their relationship status. This is looking like it's going to be a real long video. You're 24, you're too young to be discussing this topic, in my opinion. Get some life experience, then you can discuss this topic. Focus on your career, on friends, not to be concerned about relationships at this age, in my opinion. And this is another thing where we're not all on the same timelines here, and I often hear this sort of thing, not just in conversations like this, but in the majority of life, where people are like, you're too young, you're too young. I've been dealing with that my whole life. I really don't care. I really don't care. I won't let people despise me because of my youth, and I won't stop myself from giving my perspective based on the age that I am at. I do think it's very hard, and I've had this conversation with friends in my life who are a bit older than me, who are like, girl, I know you're here, you're joyful, you're like a deer in headlights and bouncing around like Bambi, talking about how much you enjoy being single, but try being single for 16 years and not just 6 years. And I'm like, girl, with all due respect, I'm hoping I am not single in 16 years. Let me just keep it real. Not because I, judge anyone who has been. Women on the internet who have been single for that long, please make the videos, because us girls need it. We want to hear your perspective. And yeah, you will probably have a different perspective and experience to me, because I am coming in from the context of somebody who is, well, I was 24 when I made that video, but I'm now 25, okay? But I do think it's important for everyone to give their perspectives, and I'm not here trying to say that this is the universal experience and joy that people will experience from being single. Everyone's situation is different. Even women in different cultural contexts, being single at my age is far more dangerous, and they don't even have as much privilege as I do to be able to say, hey, I'm here, I'm single, I'm thriving. For some of them, being single at this age means that there's no security, means that there is no safety, means that society is actually, withdrawing from them respect and access to certain resources, because they do not have the lawful title of Mrs. and wife. And I think that's an important conversation to have on a more global scale, right? Those conversations can't really be had on the internet. That's why we do women's work offline. That's why TMS exists. That's why we go into communities and have conversations with women. That's why we talk about women's development work, okay? I do think that I'm not necessarily too young to be having this discussion. I think that this discussion requires many different voices, and I'm just one of many voices in this conversation. Then there was this comment, which is very similar to the other comments. If she lowers her standards and loses weight, she'll find a guy of any race that will want to be with her in a long-term relationship and not just use her for a smash and pass session. Lose weight and lower your standards. Now, let me tell you something. As somebody who is currently, going on a lifestyle change and actually addressing their health in many different ways, not just working out, I can tell you for free that losing weight is hard, okay? It takes a whole bunch of effort. It takes mindset shifts. It takes expensive food and groceries. It takes continuous appointments at the GP. It takes a lot of stuff depending on what your weight loss journey actually looks like. Why would I put in all that work to then lower my standard? I'm so confused. I'm actually so confused. Why would I do that to then lower my standards? And also, I don't have to lower my standards, and I think you should watch last week's conversation, because I think it's absolutely deplorable and upsetting when people are told lower your standards, and yet they are blamed for when the standard of society, community, families, relationships keep dropping. SARS, I'm not gonna do that. But also, I actually didn't state my standards or my preferences in the video. And this is what I mean. People hear certain things and they think, I know you, I know what you're trying to say. You don't. Like, you actually really, really don't. And I think it's important for every woman. And somebody left a really beautiful comment on last week's video, which was basically like, girl, you don't even have to say your standards and your preferences to everybody, because it really isn't any of their business. Hold them close to your heart and become that person, which is exactly what I was saying in last week's video, right? Become your standard, live at that level, maintain that energy, and then demand it from the world, demand it from God, because you know how hard you worked to get there. You know how hard it is to sustain it, but you're still doing it, right? You're still living up to it. You're still making that choice and that commitment every day. I think the least that you can ask for is to find people who match you in mindset, who match you in energy, who match you in perspective. Maybe not completely, however, at least you found somebody who you can really do life with, because there's synergy there. And so for me personally, I'm not going to do that. and you should watch last week's video. And we have made it to the last comment. I'm so sorry this video has been long, but I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been like a little bit of a podcast, if you will. I hope you've had dinner or something whilst you've watched me. This is why you need fathers and brothers to provide balance. I'm 44, a father to 2 daughters, a brother to 2 sisters who are practicing this passive behavior. Life, happiness, love, and marriage is an active sport. After 6 years, this lady has effectively said that she did nothing but pray, make up religion, and wait. Now, because this comment is so long and because he actually gave it in like bullet points, I'm going to kind of address it in a similar way. So firstly, whilst you are a father, and I completely respect that, you are not my father. And I think it's important for us to not overstep certain boundaries in terms of people trying to be condescending, because really and truly, you cannot parent me and you cannot father me through a YouTube comment. My father and my brothers get to correct me, love me, give me their insight with intimacy and proximity. They get to do it because they love me. They get to do it because they have a sense of duty to me as their sister and as their daughter. I have men in my life who may not be perfect, but they are very much so responsible over me. Whilst I understand and I can respect your insight, you do not have to dictate it to me, because whilst you are somebody's father, you are not my father. And my father and my brothers, I have had many conversations with them about how to navigate in relationships. I have listened to their desires for me. I have heard their prayers over me. I have listened to their wisdom for me. I have heard their corrections, their rebukes. I've also heard their applauses and their support. And I take each and every one of those things with open arms and an open heart, because I love them and they love me, but sir, I don't know you. And so to say that this is why it's important for women to have fathers, or this video is an example of why people need fathers and brothers, is a huge assumption as to who is present in my life and who is not. So let's address his first point. Number 1, God didn't tell you to be single for 6 years. How do you know? Did you hear God talking to me? Biblically, daughters left their father's house and immediately went to their husband's house. This lady is creating her own Christian doctrine. Faith without works is spiritually dead. This was not a doctrine. This video was not about Christian doctrine. And the reason why I'm coming at this comment like this is because this guy came at me like that. And I want to kind of really put out plain and simply what I actually think. So the first thing is, this is not a Christian doctrine. This is not about faith doctrine. This is about my own personal development journey and what I have learned from it as I evolve and as I grow. Whilst biblically, young girls did leave their father's house to go to their husband's house straight away, that was very much so a cultural thing. That was very much so a historical thing as well. Society was set up in that way. It was structured in that way. Those girls didn't go to school. They weren't in, full-time education from the age of 4 to 16, as the majority of us, or even 18, and in some cases 21 when you graduate uni, like the majority of us here in Western culture are. They didn't go through an education system like that back in biblical times, right? And so it's important to not make a doctrine out of what was happening culturally, number 1. Number 2, boys from the age of 13, biblically, if that's what we want to talk about in terms of biblical times, from the age of 13 were already trained in their father's business. Literally, Jesus was a carpenter because Joseph was a carpenter, and as his father, he had to teach him that trade, because Jesus, as his eldest child, as here on earth, had to learn his trade. That is Jewish culture. That was that Hebraic culture in terms of the way children are trained is very much so in the ways of their father, and this is what the standard of the times were. So boys were equipped to be working from the age of 13. They were equipped with inheritances, with legacies, with estates, with fields, with agriculture, with trades. They were equipped with all of these things from the age of 13, and they were trained in those things even before that age, all the way up until their adult lives when they decided to get married. So when these girls were going to their husband's house, they were often going to their husband's houses who were equipped to be husbands, right? And that's just kind of a biblical context thing, right? They were going to their husbands' houses who were equipped to be husbands. However, both for men and women, society has changed. Things and the expectations of us have changed. The majority of us aren't taking, or the majority of men, are not taking over their father's businesses at the age of 13, especially not in the majority of cultures around the world. The majority of men, especially in the Western world, are in school till they are 16, 18, or 20 21 and then they decide to pick up a trade or a field of work. And then they go off establishing themselves in that career before they determine that they are responsible or desiring to have a wife and take off that responsibility if that is what they actually want. And so to say, well, in biblical times, this is how people navigated marriage. I don't know if you've seen the modern world, but we can't navigate marriage in those same ways. Number two, being a child bride is illegal in most countries, thank God, because it has led to a lot of problematic things. And also the biblical age for marriage was based off of maturity. What is your maturity saying? Not just in your physical condition, but in your mindset as well, in your training. Have you been trained to be mature enough to go off and be in an adult relationship that is marriage? The age of maturity right now is a bit later, in my opinion, because society has different priorities as of right now and different systems right now for the way that they train children. Back then in biblical times, depending on your social class, you were very much so trained to be a wife from a very, very early age because you needed to be sold off as early as possible so that your family could get your dowry, so that your family could actually get the money that is, or the trade that is associated with getting married, so that your family could also experience the social mobility that came with certain types of marriages and making sure that you married upwards, right? We don't live in a society necessarily anymore, in cultures necessarily, especially here in the Western world, where that is necessarily a priority. And so to say that, well, that was biblical, like you said, it doesn't necessarily mean it was doctrinal, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it was prescriptive to the way that we should navigate in modern day society, because marriage is really for the mature. Marriage is for those who have been guided. Marriage is for those who have been trained. And the marriage in the New Testament sense of things are really for people who want to see the kingdom come down to earth and partner with somebody to be able to make that happen, who want to be challenged by God to grow by his perfect design of marriage, right? In that way. But it's also for people who understand that above marriage, there is a God that they must serve. I just wanted to put that out there because as much as you're trying to school me on biblical knowledge, I do think that it's important for us to not manipulate, especially Abrahamic faiths, not just Christianity, but other Abrahamic faiths, to make women feel as though their only purpose here on this world is to be married, and therefore they need to do it as early as possible. Number two, marriage. She can easily age out of marriage without knowing. If you aren't married by 35, you are in trouble. I disagree. You are now competing with younger women. I've watched good women practice this feel-good philosophy. They turned 40, became infertile, and are now depressed. They fill their times with social media, wine, work, and girls' trips. Social media, wine, girls' trips, and work does not sound too bad right now. However, I do understand where you're coming from, but again, I think it comes down to us putting forth case studies and examples of women who just fit our argument and fit our agenda, because there are also women on the flip side who I've actually met in person who don't experience depression or unhappiness because their lives did not have marriage in it. But also I think it's important to remember that I, as a young babe, I'm not 35, I'm 25. I have a whole 10 years gap between me and this arbitrary age you've put as the expiration date for a woman to get married, right? So I think there needs to be room for a whole bunch of women to grow. I know the age demographics of the people on my channel, and there are older women here who are, you know, around the 40 mark, and there are also younger women here all the way down to 18. And I think it's important to have conversations which have the context of, and this is why I always let you guys know, this is my age, this is where my mindset and this is where my life is right now, and this is why I think like this. My mindset is probably going to change over time. It goes back to that comment that the other lady was saying, right? I think it was a lady who was saying, you know, you're too young to be talking about this conversation. Well, maybe when I get older, my mindset may change. It may not change in the way you think it will, but it may actually evolve. And I think it's important to realize that this whole women can age out of marriage thing can be quite dangerous, but there is, to a degree, as I've talked about the biological clock and stuff like that, there is some conversations and some truth that needs to be discussed around when is the best time to be fertile, X, Y, Z. But this idea that women should get married by a certain age because they should be scared of younger women coming to snap up these men, I cannot get behind that, because I don't think anybody should get into marriage or anybody should get into a relationship out of fear, especially if it means they're going to do it out of the season where they're actually ready. Now, I know people say you're never really truly ready for a relationship, but I do think, as I was previously saying, there is a stage of maturity which we as women and men as well can get to or need to get to before they get into adult relationships, especially adult long-term relationships, which require financial stewardship, the ability to, or the decision to raise a family and coach an entire generation and train up children in the way that they should go. I think it's important to have conversations about whether we are ready for that sort of thing. And if we are not ready, are we actually getting ready? Now, that readiness, if you are not equipped with it, if you have not gotten there yet, I think you should work on getting there if you desire a marriage, more than you do just getting the status of marriage before you get the maturity. Marriage before maturity, for me, doesn't necessarily make sense. I think you need to mature, then get married. Now, marriage will mature you in a more advanced way and in a more directed way because you are maturing in your marriage. But I do think there's a level of level-headedness and sobriety that you need to achieve before you just willy-nilly go into relationships, especially if you desire to have a relationship that is, built on Christian principles or faith-based principles as well. Number 3, and this was the one that really tickled me a bit. Careers. 80% of people have jobs. Most entrepreneurs fail. The average American salary is $47,000, with most earning below that for life. Sisters, research Black women's net worth. The average Black woman, in brackets, interesting, age 21 to 69, have a net worth of negative $11,000 to $9,000. Study after study report the same thing. Having a working husband or a 2-income household will save you from elderly poverty. Think about your financial outlook. Your gas prices increased by 30%. Your rental housing increased by 16%, over $100. Your food cost is up. 2 million jobs nearly occupied by women vanished during COVID. Read Business Insider. Single women are losing in today's economy, from February 13th, 2022. Laughing emoji. Liberal white feminist women are starting to lose their crap from this economy. They're realizing that they have to settle down because apartments want couples instead of single people. Remember, 2 years of ninjas not paying their rent. Live your life. Just know God and government can't save you. Woo! Okay, let's get into that. First of all, you do not know how much I earn. And whilst there are studies out there which talk about how many entrepreneurs fail, there are also a lot of entrepreneurs who succeed. There are also a lot of people who earn above the income, the average income. However, even for those people who do not live in the top 1% or the top 10% or the top 50%, there needs to be a conversation about the fact that whilst relationships have a lot of economic benefit, they can also have a lot of economic consequence if you get with somebody who is not ready to work with you financially. And I have unfortunately been privy to seeing relationships where women who are working, who may even be earning average salary, have unfortunately settled for men who don't work, or settle for men who don't make as much salary or income as they do. And I do think it's not about how much you make. I think it's more so about the perspective you have towards work, but also what you have decided as a family unit to be your system of creating wealth or creating financial stability in your household, even if you only have 2 people in the home, which is the man and the woman, or the people who are in the relationship, right? I think relationships, which I said in the video, do have a lot of financial benefits. When it comes down to buying a house, having 2 incomes that you can put on that mortgage proposal is very attractive, okay? Having 2 incomes coming into a household, period, makes a lot of things more possible and increases your financial outlook. There are tax benefits for people who are a couple and who are married on paper. I completely agree that relationships come with a lot of financial benefits and a lot of financial advantages. However, I think it's important to still empower women and empower men to develop in their careers, develop in their entrepreneurial journeys, so that they can make not necessarily as much money as possible in the greedy sense, but they can actually make money. And as much as you may say, well, the average Black woman makes X, Y, Z, I'm not telling women to be out here to be single and to be living below the poverty line. I'm still going to be out here encouraging women, whether they are single or not, and equipping women, not even just encouraging, equipping women. If you want to get plugged, plug into TMS, because that's where we do our financial work and our outreach work, and we're really getting started on that from this summer going. But I want to equip women with the ability to actually make more money so that they can build wealth for themselves, whether in a relationship or not, or just for their own independence. I've done videos on business as an entrepreneur myself and somebody who has gone on that journey. I'm happy to even do more videos about it because we are living in tough economic times, as our good sir has said. We are living in tough economic times. However, please don't run into a relationship just to find economic relief. It is a benefit to being in a relationship. However, it cannot make the pure cornerstone of your relationship, because that's how you breed things like economic abuse or financial abuse or control that happens around finances in a relationship. And unfortunately, a lot of people can testify to seeing or having heard of situations where, because a woman was not financially independent and didn't have any resources to her name, she had to stay in a less than ideal situation because she did not have the resources to actually leave or to be independent. And I think it's important for us to remember that we shouldn't be in relationships because we have to be. We should be in relationships with people because we want to be, especially if you actually have the privilege to do so. And so I'm not saying that this is the case for every woman in the world. For a lot of women who are living below a certain income, or who may be living in a country where the average income is so low, for them economics may play a huge part, right? Even culturally speaking, or just based on preference, economics and financial situation may play a huge part in the partner that they pick and whether or not they get married. But that does not take away the fact that you cannot make that the be all and end all for why you get married, especially if you get married to somebody who doesn't have the character, the morals, the alignment with you to actually build a happy, fruitful relationships, especially if you're living in a culture where people get married for love, right? And that's not every culture either. So I don't want to paint this universal image, but in my case, and in the case of the majority of women who watch my videos, they are actually able to self-sustain. They are actually able to make enough income where they may not be living a luxury life, they may not be living the soft life, they're getting by, they're doing okay. And so I think it's important for us to realize there are some realities to that part of the comment. There are some realities to the economic benefit. There is a reality, which is the economic benefits of being in a long-term committed relationship, especially one that is binded lawfully. However, I do think it's, again, an individual conversation for you to have with your partner about how you want to manage and how you want to go about building wealth in your own home. And I think it's important to make sure that you're with somebody who works, somebody who matches your energy in terms of the way that they view wealth and the way that they view income, and coming to a place of agreement and oneness on that fact. But I don't think that this whole scaremongering of life is getting expensive and inflation, you're not going to be able to afford stuff, should rush you into getting into a relationship with somebody who outside of money can't actually sustain you, who outside of money doesn't actually make you happy. But that's just my personal perspective, and you can decide to respectfully disagree, but it better be respectful. Because one thing I'm not going to take in these comments towards me, towards anybody who is in my online communities, is disrespect. I hope that this video was helpful. I hope it was interesting. I hope it got you to think about certain things, whether you are somebody who consistently, listens to my content, or somebody who just found my video. I do think a lot of these conversations require nuance, and unfortunately the internet doesn't always give us the privilege of having nuance in our conversations. But, at least we can try. We can just try. So thank you. If you did stick around all the way to this point, my goodness, thank you so much. Leave a comment down in the comment section letting me know your thoughts. Okay, you can respectfully disagree, but what do I always say? Keep it respectful. All right. So I will talk to you very, very soon, beautiful people. Maybe we can delve into more of these topics. So let me know any videos that you want to see from me in the future, but I have a whole bunch to keep working on. So I'll talk to you very, very, very soon. And as always, stay beautiful and stay blessed. Mwah.